We are Rogue Media Sports.
There are any number of reasons you might consider selling your home. To move closer to family, live within a smaller budget, or just wanting a change of scenery. Whatever your reasons, having to figure out all the various housing market trends in your area may not be what you signed up for. That's where an agent who is a realtor comes in. Realtors have the expertise to help you find the right price and navigate the process to sell your home in a way that's right for you. That's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
With the Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card, you can earn unlimited 2% cash rewards on purchases you want and purchases you need. That means you earn on what you want, like trying out that new workout class, and 2% cash rewards on what you need, like a foam roller for your sore muscles. That's the beauty of the Active Cash Credit Card. It's ready when you are, with unlimited 2% cash rewards. The Wells Fargo Active Cash Credit Card. That's real life ready. Terms apply. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/activecash.
And it is the Doomsday Podcast, and the Cowboys in the aftermath of a 30-22 loss to the Los Angeles Rams here in the Coliseum. I sit high above the field right now, very muddy on the fringes of it, but the field actually held up okay, and it provided the surface for the Rams running backs to just run roughshod over the Cowboys. Ed Werder joining along. It's Frito Nation Productions. And Ed, just watching this thing, it remarkable that the calling card for this team, and we'll hear from Chris Richard, but the calling card of this team does not hold up, and the Cowboys lose. But not only they lose, they just absolutely got dominated up front. And I think on top of losing, that has to be quite a setback to all Cowboys fans, even the way this thing happened.
Well, there haven't been many games in the past three seasons where Ezekiel Elliott is the third most productive running back in a game, but this was one, and for the Cowboys, the last one of their season. C.J. Anderson, a journeyman cut by three different teams since April, had 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. All-Pro Todd Gurley had 115 yards and a touchdown, and Ezekiel Elliott had 47 yards. Here's a little perspective. The Cowboys have appeared in the most playoff games of any NFL team in history. They've competed in 63 postseason games. They've never allowed as many rushing yards as they did in this game to the Rams, and it's odd that it would come, Matt, a week after they eliminate a Seahawks team that led the NFL in rushing during the course of the season, and now they're responsible for a historic failure that concludes the 2018 season.
Yeah, and it did not really put any sort of pressure on a consistent basis on Jared Goff, and so this was a really dismal performance. I want to update you, Ed, from here. Jerry Jones, I waited and waited and waited for him. I waited until everybody else packed up. And he must have found one of these back tunnels. There's a lot of them at this old place, this relic here in Los Angeles. No comments from him. I tried to go talk to Scott Linehan. He did not have time, did not speak to reporters. Chris Richard and Rod Marinelli did. We'll have more on this, Ed, but you'll enjoy hearing Rod Marinelli ask about the reports that he might be either retiring or taking a lesser role. Basically said anyone who would ask that question was soft. And he looked right at the reporter, actually Kate Heropoulos from the Morning News. And so very interesting, kind of an angry Rod Marinelli after this one. Okay, Ed, a ton of stuff to get to. Frito, go ahead and play the music. And it is Cowboys a loss. The season has ended. The finality starting to set in. I am live on the scene here at Memorial Coliseum on the edge of the USC campus, Exposition Park. And, Ed, by the way, not that people want to hear too much about the shape of this thing, but let's just say to cover this one, you needed to bring your hard hat. Lots of construction going on here. It's kind of in rough shape. But I tell you who didn't bring their hard hats. the Cowboys defense. And Ed, as only you can, you always were able to put this in great historical perspective. But two backs, I was trying to remember. I mean, they used to have, the Giants had that one stretch where they kind of had the fire and ice thing going. It was Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs. But, Ed, this is unbelievable. C.J. Anderson, as you noted off the top, this man had been cut. He'd bounced all around the league. And tonight, I mean, you talk about just, running right through the Cowboys defense, and they could not do anything about it. In a game where the Cowboys looked early, like they were going to have a great shot at this thing, they end up losing. And honestly, the score looks closer than it really was.
Yeah, and, we talked a lot about going into this game that it looked like the kind of game that Elliott could dominate because the Rams under Wade Phillips had allowed an average of 5.1 yards per rush attempt against their defense, which was the worst in the league. So to put this night into perspective, the Cowboys defense allowed an average of 5.7 yards per run Saturday night, worse than the worst. And the Rams, the only team all year to have all 5 offensive line starters for every game, really dominated the Cowboys defensive front like has not happened at all season. And in fact, this is just the second time in 30 postseasons, Matt, that 2 running backs from the same team have rushed for 100 yards in a playoff game. It's happened 4 times in total, but 2 times it involved a running back and a quarterback. The 2 times it has now involved 2 running backs were Terrell Davis and Derek Loville for Denver in the 1997 wild card round, and then tonight Todd Gurley and C.J. Anderson in the divisional round for the Los Angeles Rams. And one thing I asked some Cowboys people about, trying to get them to explain what exactly happened to cause the collapse of the defense in the way that it did. I mean, this had been such a great, young, athletic defense that had stood up to so many great challenges during the course of the year. They weren't as good on the road as they were at home, but they had some really sensational performances, including, the wild card round against Seattle, which was a very good run team, the best in the league statistically. And I got a really interesting answer, and it's one that Troy Aikman kind of touched on a little bit during the broadcast. But I thought maybe it had a lot to do with the deception that Sean McVay, the Rams coach, uses, the play action game, causing confusion by the Cowboys defense. And the actual response I get was that it had more to do with the way McVay uses the quarterback coach communication system to get the Rams in the right play for the right look. In other words, that system is active until 15 seconds remain on the play clock. So Goff hurries the Rams to the line of scrimmage while he's still in communication with the head coach on the sideline, and they basically at that point force the defense to declare what they're going to do, the defensive look that they're going to present. And then the Rams decide what play they're going to call. So it's not as much of a guessing game for the Rams in that situation as it is for most teams going up against Dallas or other defenses. And this person says it gives, guys a lot of things that they have to consider when playing their assignment, which causes you not to play as fast on defense as you normally would.
Well, that's very interesting, and it is maybe that's one of the many reasons that the Sean McVay continues to be the belle of the ball, and the reason so many people want to hire people that are just even slightly connected to him. But to come in here, it is interesting. We sometimes give people these reputation. Oh, this is a high-flying offense, and they've certainly put up big passing numbers this season. But to absolutely sit there and gash the Cowboys, I mean, Ed, 23 carries for C.J. Anderson. Todd Gurley, the all-world running back, only had 16. He averaged 7.2 yards per carry, and C.J. Anderson 5.3 yards per carry. 273 yards of rushing compared to the Cowboys' 50. And, of course, Dak Prescott, as we've said, he in the past has given teams problems with his, and pardon the helicopter flying over me right now, he has given
Is it Jerry leaving?
Trouble.
It's Jerry leaving. He's flying to his yacht.
I think you're right. He spent more on that yacht, $100 million more, they said, than actual to buy the Cowboys. but he has tunneled out of this place. As I told you, Rod Marinelli, an angry Marinelli, did not like being questioned about his potential retirement. And Ed, before we get on, because I know you have a ton of stuff that we want to get to, and we'll hear from Dak, some of my back and forth with Dak Prescott. But let's hear from Chris Richard, who tried to kind of explain what in the world happened to this Cowboys defense.
You have to take your hat off to them. I think tonight we showed our youth at an inopportune time, but hats off to them. They came out, they executed their game plan really well, and that's all you can do is just congratulate them.
Coach, you've done a great job this year for this team. Everybody's talking about it. Do you start possibly thinking about your own individual future now a little bit? Another job possibly out there?
Oh, no. My mindset will never, ever go there. It's always going to be where I am about this team, about the men. Like I said, the sole mission, man, is to build men and make sure that they have something when they're done with this game.
Come on. Chris, what gives you guys the confidence that you do have the right mixture, the right coaches, the right players?
Say that again?
What gives you the confidence that you guys do have the right formula here? You have the right players, the right coaches to get it done?
For the simple fact that you're asking me that question, we're here. It wasn't our night, but we'll get back together and we'll be right back.
I mean, just it boggles your mind. 2 rushes over 100 yards, first time it happened in playoff history.
Yeah, unfortunate. But again,
was this one fits or what was it, or?
It always comes down to that. If a team is running the ball, we're not fitting correctly. And it's as simple as us getting our cleats in the grass, getting off the football, and doing things right consistently. They did a much better job. Again, it's on me. It's on me. I have to do a much better job of having our guys prepared to execute when we get out there on the field.
That 37 at the end, I mean, to stop them and Goff runs for the first down. Just talk about that play. Would Sean Lee not get off the block there?
Well, there's no one to point the finger at. Like I said, we can't put ourselves in that position. And now it's a non-issue. But we put ourselves there, and we try to cover them down tight. They had a nice play call. Quarterback did a good job running for the first down.
What do you mean, Chris, when you say the youth caught up with you guys? Did you just see some things that happened that surprised you a little bit?
Sure, no question. Our guys have done a really good job of doing right consistently throughout the whole entire year. And, again, it just wasn't the right timing for us right now for whatever reason. Again, so it's right back to the drawing board.
Coach, what was your message to your guys tonight after this game?
It's just stay true. Like I said, it was a great year. It wasn't what we wanted, but it's a hard lesson learned. You get into these situations here, you get into these games here, it's absolutely about doing right and doing right longer. So the fact that we weren't able to get that thing done, I said we have no one to blame but ourselves. And again, but you take your hat off to the Rams for doing a hell of a job executing their game plan.
When you think about a young team growing from a situation like this, how do you facilitate that? How does that happen?
Yeah, it hardens you. So it's a tough game. But like I said, what do scars do? Either they wound you and they send you away, or they just set you. Every time you look at a wound, now you recognize it's just a reminder how life can't break you. So that's the mindset right there.
Are you, now that we know you're probably going to be back here, I mean, something like this just drives you, I would think, heading into next year?
Sure, no question. Like I said, we didn't attain our goal. And our goal is as simple as us being the best that we can absolutely be. Tonight, we did not show that.
All right, there he was. And Ed, you could hear me trying to get to the bottom of what he called the Cowboys' youth showing up. So we have sort of celebrated the Cowboys for having no starters over the age of 30 and how young they are and all those kinds of things. We've talked about these 2 great young linebackers that they have with Leighton Vander Esch and, of course, Jalen Smith. And I thought it was interesting that that is right where the coach went is, hey, I didn't have them prepared and our youth showed up, basically saying they weren't kind of ready and they couldn't get this thing adjusted. And I tell you, we've celebrated this coach a lot. I think tonight we have to say they absolutely got taken to the house, and Coach McVay and his group put on a clinic.
Yeah, and kind of to Marinelli's point, I think you have to give the Cowboys credit for overcoming their 3-5 start and putting together, a succession of wins and winning the NFC East, which wasn't terribly competitive, although the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles did make the playoff field. And, this was the first time in 31 years that a team reached this point in the postseason without having a single starter who was 30 years old or older. So, I think it's fair to look at this as, maybe the beginning of a consistent Super Bowl, contending Cowboys team. I mean, they have some things to do in the offseason. They have to sign Dak and DeMarcus Lawrence and Amari Cooper and Byron Jones and so forth. But at the same time, I think you could look at it like this is really a wasted opportunity because the Cowboys are 3-0 this season against the two teams that they would have played had they reached the NFC Championship game, the Saints or the Eagles. So I think you can see it kind of both ways. There's reason for optimism and plenty to explain the disappointment and the sense of finality that they're feeling right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk to Glenn Stretch-Smith, our scout coach, former Cowboys scout coach, and he'll give his grades. Ed, but you and I can talk about this for a minute. Cowboys, we talked about their just lack of getting it done on defense. They leaned heavily on the defense all season. They couldn't do it. You'll hear later Dak basically say, I'm going to have my defenses back, even though he had some struggles. Ed, what did you make of the play of Dak Prescott, though? Let's take Zeke out. Zeke, they really did a great job slowing him down. 20 carries for 47 yards. Dak did find some plays downfield. Gallup on that one drive had 80 yards in receiving. Cooper had his moments. They probably could have found him even more. What was your overall take on not only the play calling, but Prescott's play?
Well, the Cowboys were forced into a position, with the exception of very early in the game. They had the lead because of the terrific quick strike throw he made to Amari Cooper for the touchdown. But beyond that, they were playing from behind all night, and obviously they weren't able to control the game at all with Zeke, Elliott not being effective, and the game was kind of forced into Dak's hands. And, to his credit, he makes the big play to Gallup where he improvises and he's outside the structure of the offense and rolling left and makes a terrific throw to put him on the 1-yard line. And, I mean, this was a game that had some hallmarks of being the kind of game the Cowboys win. They didn't turn the ball over. This is the first time this year that they lost a game they didn't turn the ball over. They're now 7-1 in those games. Elliott, Prescott, and Cooper all scored touchdowns for the Cowboys. So there were a lot of things that would make you think that they had a chance to win the game. The thing that I guess bothered me the most was Prescott's either unwillingness or Scott Linehan's refusal to create plays where Prescott could use his mobility until it was really too late. He didn't run until there were about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter on a fourth down run that he picked up, he converted, but really there was his running ability had no effect on the outcome of the game, and that would be my biggest criticism of Dak Prescott in this game.
Ed, on that point you just made, and I know we've had some really good visits with Scott Linehan, and I tried to visit with him tonight, and he apparently had to go talk to someone named Dave that I'm not really familiar with, but he kind of walked off there, and I wondered to myself, Ed, if that was going to be perhaps the last time we saw Scott Linehan as a member of the Cowboys coaching staff. My gut tells me that Jason, certainly some reports out there that Jason's going to get an extension. That doesn't surprise us at all. To turn this thing around from 3-5, I think he's going to get a lot of the credit. I think Chris Richard will get a lot of the credit. We'll see what happens with Marinelli. I think if there is a downside to this season, some of the shortcomings in this offense, some of the maybe lack of creativity that you just alluded to will be addressed. I think in giving Jason an extension and basically endorsing him, what Jerry may do is let Jason really chart the course moving ahead. And I feel like Jason is maybe ready to make a change at offensive coordinator. So, this year I put percentages on things. Ed, I just have a strong feeling tonight that we have seen the last of Scott Linehan calling plays for the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I mean, I think it remains to be seen. Obviously, he's been a target of a lot of criticism, as is often the case with whoever the offensive play caller is. They struggled throughout the course of the year in the red zone. They were the lowest scoring team in the playoff field, although they did score the most points in the wild card round and did advance out of the round. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I agree with you that Jason Garrett's going to get a contract extension to remain the coach of the Cowboys. The question is, if Jerry wants him to change coordinators, does Jason put up any resistance? I mean, Scott Linehan is somebody he personally brought in and chose to be the play caller if Jerry wasn't going to allow Jason to do it himself. So I don't know at the moment what Jason's comfort level is with Scott Linehan and his conviction about his contribution going forward to the success of the team. But I do agree that ownership and Stephen Jones and some other people influential in the organization may pressure Jason to accept a change at the coordinator position, thinking that they need to find somebody who does a better job of introducing more of these college offensive concepts into their offensive scheme, because that they would take better advantage of the full array of Dak Prescott's, capabilities as a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, I think all those are good points, Ed. The only thing I think you and I might have a tiny bit of a disagreement on is anybody needing to pressure Jason. I think this is a move he is ready and willing to make. And
that could be.
And again, knowing that he's the one who handpicked Scott Linehan, several years ago. But I just think that's the way this thing is going. All right, it is time. We do it every week, and sadly, this will be our last post-game report. Of course, the off-season, as we get ready for the draft, we'll have a ton of doomsday for you, so we're not going away forever. But it is time for Glenn Stretch Smith with his That's a Stretch segment. And Glenn, as you, of course, were doing some TV work earlier tonight, all that Facebook Live y'all do over at WFAA. Love to do some of that Facebook Live. Tonight it all comes to an end. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball and Stretch. It begins with that front seven. We've praised them a lot this season. Let's start with the defensive line, because they got gashed. And they got gashed in a big way, and I know everybody had a hand in it. But what did you make of this? What appeared to be a pretty awful performance by the defense?
Yeah, the inside guys who I had praised last week really got whipped, and I'm talking about Woods, Collins, Reed. I mean, they got whipped inside, and that shocks me, because that's kind of a group that Marinelli takes a lot of pride in. The outside guys, the ends just didn't do much at all. I mean, there was Goff got little to no pressure put on him, and I get it. I mean, when they're running 7-man protections, it is hard to get pressure when you're only bringing 4 and 5 guys, and so I understand that. But schematically, I think this team got really whipped and out-schemed up front, and I say that because there must have been 30 times tonight that the Rams would run a ghost fake off the hand, to hand that ball off, and running those inside zones with Anderson and Gurley. And when they run that zone, when they run that zone look and then run the ghost fake off of it, it causes the end to stay wide where he can't squeeze down in there. And that created some huge running lanes for them. So schematically, they got whipped. Up front, they got whipped. And it was really a poor effort and really a poor scheme from what was put together. And I think I've graded these guys very hard this year, because I think Marinelli coaches them hard. They take a lot of pride in what they do, but they got whipped tonight up front. And I mean, I could barely give this group a D and it really, it was really almost a poor effort. And they are really close to getting an F. I mean, just got whipped up front.
Wow. Well, the linebackers have obviously created a lot of intensity. They brought a lot of athleticism and emotion to the defense. But in this game, it looked like they tried everybody they had. I mean, they even rotated Sean Lee in and took Leighton Vander Esch out at one point, then rotated Lee in and took Jalen Smith out at another point. We saw Chris Richard screaming at Leighton Vander Esch on the sideline. When the game was on the line and they needed to stop, they went back to Lee rather than Vander Esch. What did you think of the performance of the linebackers?
Well, I just, again, and I know you guys will understand this, but, always before when you're inside two guys can take up the center and the two guards, that's what allows your linebackers to run free. I mean, that's what gives them the opportunity and the leverage to go play. And when you're getting whipped up front and you're getting a free release from the center or a free release from the guard to get up, I mean, all of a sudden you're not running the way, quite frankly, that they've been running all year. And so, I mean, I didn't see much out of them because, again, the front four weren't playing those front five. I'll give McVay some credit because they run a lot of bunch sets, and they have two tight ends that can really block the edge, unlike what the Cowboys have. And so that gives them, that gave them some leverage there. But linebackers, it's hard to be critical of them because, I mean, they were just getting guys to free release up on them. So, I mean, that group, I just give the linebackers just a barely a C. And I give them a C because they were able to do some things in coverage. But, boy, I mean, when you're getting whipped up front, you got issues, and that carried over to the linebacker core.
All right, and let's look at the secondary, a guy you've been somewhat critical of this season, but he's also obviously had some really good moments this season. Byron Jones was burned a few times. I thought on one of those runs in particular, you probably remember the one I'm talking about, Woods got caught out in some space. It took a really bad angle. This is a big hitter. He and Heath are big hitters, but on some of those runs in space, they get in trouble because they're just they have trouble kind of taking those right angles. And I thought the safety play was left a little bit to be desired tonight. What did you think of that secondary?
Yeah, it was. The safety play was suspect. I mean, I think that Heath was down there. Especially, I mean, he got really exposed on that last 3rd and 8 when they just ran that naked boot. He was kind of just lost as to what to do. I like Xavier, and I think Xavier does okay in coverage. I mean, again, Louisier drops an interception. I mean, this is a group. I mean, think about it. I think they had the entire defense got 9 interceptions the whole season. I was looking at this after the game. Everson Walls himself had 11 interceptions as a rookie. And so, you just start saying, these guys, I mean, they don't get their hands on the football, and then when it hits him right in the gut, he can't catch it. And that's to me, that's alarming. It's alarming that they don't get their hands on more footballs. Mm-hmm. But what was really evident tonight is that they didn't tackle well, and like you were saying, I mean, when they're when LA is trying to widen, you're running those ghost fakes, you've got to make sure in those jet sweeps, you've got to make sure that you come up and tackle with force and that you take the correct angle. This group played poorly, really poorly. And again, I'm going to give them just above an F and a D for really what I thought was worst effort all year.
Wow. Rough effort from the secondary. Stretch, keep that phone. You were so demonstrative, and we love it. Keep that phone right up by your mouth. We are in 4 different locations tonight. We are spread out all over the country. I'm here at the Coliseum, and people are dying for these grades, and they're dying at the end of this season. And people want some people fired. And I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think there might be some changes on the offensive staff. I brought up Scott Linehan. Ed's not quite as strong as I am on it, but he doesn't think I've wandered out too much off the reservation. Let's start with quarterback, though. Dak Prescott, his performance tonight, where are you on that, Stretch?
Just very average. I mean, he See, he has got to get to where he can set his feet and do a better job with his feet. You saw him tonight. He missed some balls. I don't know if Beasley ran the wrong route, was supposed to run an angle, and he ran a shallow dig, but it was a really poorly thrown ball either way. Now, he obviously can do some things when he gets on the move. I like how he gets on the move and keeps his eyes down the field. He hit Gallup for the big play. But just an average effort from Dak. I do think that knee's still kind of bothering him a little bit from that hit he took last week. But that has nothing to do with being able to set your feet and being more accurate with the football. And it's something he's going to have to work on, especially this offseason. Now that he's got Amari Cooper here, they've got to get better at throwing some deep balls. This team, they've got to hit some home runs, and right now they're not doing that. I mean, I like the concept of 12 and 15 play drives. Unfortunately, so do a lot of defensive coordinators because there's so much room for error in there, and that's a tough way to make a living. But he has got to become more accurate with the football, and tonight it was very evident. And at best, I'm going to give him a C for the night.
And you talk about how hard it is when you don't get explosive plays to score consistently. It's especially difficult when you go 1 for 10 on third down to have any lengthy scoring drives. What did you think about Ezekiel Elliott's performance? Obviously, average under 3 yards a carry, only had 2 catches in the passing game, really wasn't much of a factor in the game.
Yeah, he was not. I mean, they took him out of the game. I mean, I'm going to give Ndamukong Suh some credit because, I mean, for the first time in a while, I mean, his Shiva getter was going tonight. He decided to play, and he gave him some fits up front. Obviously, Aaron Donald, I mean, that's a mismatch with Connor Williams. Connor Williams will get better, but Zeke tonight, he just, there were no holes. I mean, they didn't do a great job of blocking it up front. And, it's hard to be critical of Zeke, guys, but,
yeah,
I think he blocks well. He did a nice job in pass protection. I mean, I'm going to give Zeke just an average grade in the B because that's about what he did. But, the offensive line really, guys, did not play well. And that's concerning to me. I mean, I know they're missing Frederick, and I get that, but Connor Williams, they basically just lined Aaron Donald over Connor Williams and said, we're going to take this match all night long. And then Sue was able to really whip Looney a few times in those short yardage situations. And the offensive line for the Cowboys had one of their worst showings of the year as well. And barely just a D for the offensive line too. I think the thing that really is concerning to me though is the tight ends, guys. The tight ends in this offense, if you're going to stay with this offense, and Matt, you talked about Linehan coming or going. If you're going to stay with this offense, you better get you some tight ends who can block on the edge and who can set the edge, especially for this running back and for a zone running scheme. And right now, I mean, Jumpy, he couldn't block me in a damn phone booth. And they're trying to make a tight end out of that guy. They got to turn the page from that. Jarwin is just okay, and Schultz is the same way. I mean, they've got to get better at tight end. And you see how this group played tonight. They had a poor night as well. I mean, other than the few catches that they made, they've got to be able to block and set the edge on that line of scrimmage. And they weren't worth a tinker's butt tonight. So, I'm going to give the tight ends an F for really poor play.
Wow. And Gathers had a chance and dropped it out there. That's who, for those that don't know, that's a Stretch. When he says Jumpy, he's talking about Rico Gathers. And by the way, had you ever seen an offensive lineman or a center sack his own quarterback? What'd you think about that play?
I mean, the quarterback's trying. The quarterback's trying to do a little bit of a James Brown turnaround, and he was trying to help him a little bit. I thought it was, I thought it was it was kind of a bizarre call. I mean, I thought the call on Byron Jones was a ticky-tack call. I mean, he goes to shoot his hands in the breastplate of the receiver, and when he does, obviously the receiver's moving, and his hand kind of gets in the gets in the face a little bit, but it wasn't like he was bending his face mask back. So questionable calls. We can sit and talk about that. But again, guys, the tight ends, they're not very good. And if they don't recognize that and try to really do something to upgrade that position, I think they're going to be in for a long off season.
They struck early with Cooper, and they seem to have some success against that safety, number 20 for the Rams
Joyner,
out there.
Marcus Joyner.
Yes. And then also even late they were able to complete one, got a nice play against Talib when he came back in there. But what did you make of the wide receivers? Some really good moments from Gallup, but certainly they didn't do it all the way through the game.
Yeah, and I thought, Noah Brown made a nice catch over there on the sideline.
Yes.
Cooper's a good player. I mean, they've got they've got some good players at receiver with the upgrade to Cooper. I still think Austin can give you a few things. Beasley is obviously banged up. I'm not sure that he could really plant and cut on that ankle. And when you can't do that and you're playing in the slot and they're playing so much man coverage and basically daring you to throw the football, I think that, it's tough to grade him hard because I think he was banged up. But this is the group that I did give a winning grade to because I thought they made some clutch catches. Great catch by Gallup. There's a lot of upside here with this receiving core, and so I'm going to give them a B. And I thought they did a really good job tonight of making some clutch catches and then running after the catch. I mean, that's the other thing is being able to catch the ball and get up the field.
All right, Stretch, we really appreciate it. You've done an excellent job for us this season. We hope that you'll continue to be with us this off season. Any sort of parting thoughts? Did you, overall, considering where this team was 3-5, it's hard to call it a failure of a season. I think it just feels like, as I sit here and look at this field tonight, that it was a big missed opportunity for this team to be knocking on the door. Yeah.
Yeah, and Matt, I agree with you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I agree with you. I mean, I think after 3-5, I think Jason got this thing turned around. I think that, he got this team playing hard. I mean, you consider that. I mean, there's not a starter that's over 30 years old. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. I think there was an opportunity here to be able to cash in. They failed to cash in. It will be interesting to see, after last off season and kind of, I think there were some power struggles within the organization. I'm not sure Jason didn't want to make a change at offensive coordinator last year, was not allowed to. Will he be allowed to this year? Is that something that he wants to do? Because I think in that power struggle, I think the coordinator, was able to get his guy coaching the quarterbacks, his guy coaching the tight ends. He got rid of Frank Pollock, the offensive line coach, because, he was a little confrontational with him. So he got his way there. And I'm just not sure that all of that, really, was able to bear fruit like the way they thought it was going to. So, he wanted to keep, really an underachieving receiving core. I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. I don't think you can stand pat. I don't think you just go into next year with the same group. So it will be interesting to see. I think you got to think about what you're going to do with Jason. Extend. I think they've got to extend Jason, but it'd be interesting to see what the terms are and see how it all shakes out.
Stretch, we appreciate it. It's been fun having you, and I know Ed. I mean, this is Ed's favorite moment of the week when he hears you answer the phone, as you always do. How do you say it?
Golf shop.
Golf shop. And hey, no profanity. Way to go. Congratulations. Glenn Stretch Smith, no profanity segment, a rarity.
It's exciting. It's exciting. I'm excited. I appreciate you having me, guys. Have a great one.
There he goes. Glenn Stretch Smith checking in after this one, after he did some TV for WFAA. I do want to say this tonight. Thank you so much to MyBookie. MyBookie was with us through a lot of the season, and I think they kind of kept following us and realized, whoa, wait, Doomsday's, more successful than we realized. And so they jumped right back in with us. MyBookie.com. That's where you go. And you just use the promo code Doomsday, DOOMSDAY, My bookie. The folks that are sort of into this thing and like putting a little money down, they always come up to me and go, "Hey, my bookie's the best." And these guys are in, it's Costa Rica, and they just do a phenomenal job. And one of the other things that's kind of fun, Ed, when he was at ESPN for all those years, really liked playing that fantasy. I don't know if he liked it, but they made him play. And Ed was a good sport. And this My Bookie group has some awesome fantasy stuff. So even after the season now, you can play some fantasy football through them. And even next season, when you get ready to draft your team and all, you can do that through My Bookie. We could not be more pleased. Lowe's, My Bookie, all our fine sponsors, and of course, and I'll mention more about Hodges Capital later. But been great to have all our partners this season. And Ed, as we kind of finish this thing up, I know there's a few closing thoughts. We've had some interesting talks about who might not be around next season. It does look like Chris Richard will be back with the Dolphins hiring the Patriots coach. I believe that's Coach Flores that they
Brian
were
Flores,
able
the defensive play caller for Bill Belichick and the Patriots. That hasn't been finalized, but all expectations are that, barring the unforeseen, that's who will be the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins, which would indicate that Chris Richard will not get a head coaching job this offseason and therefore would likely to return to the Cowboys, we assume, with a pay raise and potentially a promotion.
Yes, and I will repeat, as I sit here at the Coliseum, Ed, the very fiery Rod Marinelli, when it was suggested, reports that you're going to step aside. I don't think it was asked in a confrontational manner. You and I have both been accused at times of being confrontational. I think that's unfair for both of us, but I was not. I was over there talking to Chris Richard, and I looked over there, and I caught him kind of staring somebody down, Marinelli. So I walked over there, as I tend to do, and wanted to see what was going on. And then I was quickly told that Marinelli had basically told the questioner, anybody who would ask me about that is soft. You are soft for asking that question. So, who knows what will happen, but it does not seem like Rod Marinelli is ready to go quietly. And we will see how the Cowboys handle this situation, among other situations this offseason.
Well, and I guess when you think about, how to frame what the Cowboys accomplished and what they failed to accomplish this season, once again, it's a year where they won the division. They had the leading rusher in the NFL. It's the third time in 5 years that's happened with Jason Garrett as the head coach. And in every one of those situations, they lost in the divisional round of the playoffs. So he still has not been able to get this team to a conference championship game. They've now lost 8 straight postseason road games. So that streak remains in play next year when they return. And, bigger picture, we've talked a lot about Jason Garrett. It certainly seemed that there was a point earlier in the season where he was unlikely to survive and return in 2019. But I think all indications are now that Jerry Jones is going to bring him back and sign him to an extension. And I think if you look around the league, there are only 5 head coaches in the NFL who have been with their teams for longer than Garrett's been with the Cowboys. Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, and Pete Carroll, and all of them have won a Super Bowl. And Garrett has not even been to a conference championship game yet.
Wow. I hadn't even thought of it that way, but it is very interesting, and that says a lot, I'm afraid, about the Cowboys organization. But I guess the thought this year is, hey, they did have a turnaround, and maybe if they keep knocking on the door, they will cash in at some point. We will see. There'll be so many questions this offseason. The draft, of course, you'll have the combine, and Ed and I will be here for you. I want to say, Ed, thanks to Hodges Capital. Over 30 years, Hodges Capital has had one of primary focusing on U.S. stocks. 10-person investment team combs the investment landscape handpicked, selected, undervalued, and underfollowed companies. If you're looking for someone to make your investment assets grow, consider Hodges Capital Management, the Hodges Fund. It's HodgesCapital.com or HodgesFunds.com. That's the brother team, Craig and Clark Hodges. Thanks to Mark Friedman and Ed. I appreciate it, man. We've had a record-setting year. The Cowboys have helped us with that, but I also think that hopefully our insight and our interviews and some of the people, some of the things we've brought to folks have really helped us, and appreciate everything you've done.
I've enjoyed it and look forward to season 3 and some off-season news.
All right. Appreciate you. And from the Coliseum, on the edge of the USC campus. Good night, everybody.
Well, the Christmas lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it, between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.